Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to show you exactly how to play the Christmas song, also known by its opening line, Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, on the ukulele. Now we're going to be working in the key of C major, and if you'd like to follow along to a lead sheet, I included a link to that in the description. Now let's get started. Now this song has a lot of chords to it, and that's partly because it's a really jazzy kind of song, so I'm going to show you the chord progressions to the verse and chorus, but before all that, I'd like to show you all the fingering for all the chords that we're going to be using. So if you're a ukulele expert and don't need to know all the fingerings, feel free to skip ahead to this time. And I even included quick links to all the sections in this tutorial in the description below, so feel free to check that out if you're looking for a specific part that you need extra help with. So here are all the chords that we're going to be using in this song. Yeah, I know it looks like a lot of chords, and that's because there are, but don't let that discourage you, because it's actually really fun to play when you learn how to play it, and it's not just a super repetitive song that you use the same 4 chords over and over. So get excited. So starting with C major, all we do is place our third finger on the 3rd fret of the 1st string, and it sounds like this. Next we have C major 7, and it's actually very similar to C major, but all we're doing is placing our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, and it sounds like this. Then we have our C7 chord, and again, it's very similar to the 2 before, and all we're doing is placing our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 1st string, and it sounds like this. And then there's D major, in which we place our 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string, our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and our 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. And it sounds like this. And then there's D minor, in which we place our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, our 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. And it sounds like this. Next we have E major, and this is probably going to be one of the more difficult chords that we play today, and that's because it's a bar chord. Now if you've never played a bar chord before, all we're doing is placing our finger on all the strings on a given fret. And in this case what we're doing is placing our 1st finger on all the strings on the 2nd fret, and then with our 3rd finger placing that on the 4th fret, but most of the strings, and only these 3 strings here, and not this one right here. So this is what it sounds like when we play that. Next we have E flat major, which is basically the same as E major, but all we're doing is shifting that down 1 fret and have our 1st finger on the 1st fret and our 3rd finger on the 3rd fret. And it sounds like this. Next we have E7, which is actually one of my favorite ukulele chords, and we place our 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 4th string. And it sounds like this. Then there's F major, in which we place our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, and our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. And it sounds like this. Then there's F minor, in which we place our 4th finger on the 3rd fret of the 1st string, our 2nd finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, and our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 4th string. And it sounds like this. Then there's G minor, in which we place our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 1st string, our 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. And it sounds like this. Then there's G7, in which we place our 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, and our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. And it sounds like this. Then A minor, which is really easy. All we do is place our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, and it sounds like this. Then there's B7, which is another bar chord, but this one's a little easier than the first one. All we're doing is placing our 1st finger on all the strings of the 2nd fret again, and then we're placing our 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the 3rd string, and it sounds like this. And finally, there's B flat 7, which, just like the last bar chord that we did, it's very similar to the first, but all we're doing is shifting everything over 1 fret. So we place our 1st finger on all the strings of the 1st fret, and then we place our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and it sounds like this. And now the strumming patterns. Now the one that we are using for the majority of the song goes like this. Down, down, up. And that's literally all there is to it. So let me repeat it a few times so you can hear what it sounds like together. Now there are two sections of the song that play some quick chords at the end of verse 2 and 3. So all we're doing during those parts are just playing 4 downstrokes like this. And finally, there are parts in the song where we just hold out a specific chord, and then instead of just playing that down, down, up, I wanted to add this. Down, down, up, down, up. So let me play that one more time. And now the chord progressions. So starting with verse 1, we have C major, D minor, C major 7, D minor, C major, C7, F major, E7, A minor, F minor, C major, B7, E major, B flat 7, E flat, and then G7. And here's what it sounds like with the strumming pattern. And when we sing along, chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Next we have verse 2, which I'm only going to touch on because it's very similar to verse 1, the only difference being the ending. So right after that B7 chord that we play, we have C, A minor, D minor, G7, and then C again. So when I was telling you about the strumming pattern earlier, this is the part that is fast. So we have just downstrokes playing C, A minor, D minor, G7, C. Now that is fast, like I was talking about, so make sure you practice this a few times before moving on to the chorus. But just so you can hear what it sounds like, here is verse 2 with the lyrics. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe help to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. Notice how at the very end there were those quick chords, and then when we hold out that C7 chord, we're playing that extra long strumming pattern. And now the chorus progression. It goes like this. G minor, C7, G minor, C7, G minor, C7, and then F, and we hold that one. Then there's F minor, then B flat 7, then E flat, and then A minor, and then D, D minor, and finally G7. And here's what it sounds like with the strumming pattern. And when we sing along with it, they know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And then right after that is the final verse, which is the same exact chord progression as the second verse. So now what I'm going to do is play the entire song for you so that you can practice along with the full song. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe help to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh, and every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. And that, my friends, is how to play the Christmas song on ukulele. Now, if you found this helpful at all, I would encourage you to please subscribe as well as ring that bell, and feel free to comment any other holiday tutorials you'd like to see me do next, as well as let me know if there's anything you need extra help with, or if there's something I may have left out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.